Welcome to the You Need More Money podcast. I'm your host, Matt Manero, where I come to you each and every week from my studio in Dallas, Texas. I'm excited for every guest that comes on the podcast. And the reason for that is because I'm in a luxurious position that I pick the guests. So I get to invite whoever I want. And my reasoning is very simple. I want the guest to provide fantastic content and information in real talk for the audience. That's my number one criteria on this show. And then the second is, what's in it for me? How can I learn from my guests? So as you're learning, I'm learning. And my guest today is Reid. Now, Jeremy and I had some scheduling issues a few different times, mostly our fault in our office, but he was gracious enough to stay with us till we could get him booked again. And I've done 158 episodes now, and this by far was one of the most exciting episodes that I was looking forward to, because Jeremy has done something that I want to do. He's transformed. He's transformed physically from one person that he was until his early 20s into a brand new person that he is now. And I did that in my business, and now I'm doing it in my body at 49 years old. I'm in the midst of this transition. This transformation is probably the better word. So Reid, welcome to the You Need More Money podcast.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's a pleasure to be here, man.
Dude, I want to talk about all of it because there is so much connected to transforming to make us more money, that as I'm going through this, it's unbelievable for someone like myself, who I thought I had it pretty well figured out, how many new doors are beginning to open in my mind as I begin to really cleanse my body, drop weight, and build this new character. You refer to it, you have a 3-step program in which I believe your number one step is action. Your second, which you kind of think is maybe the first, is the story. And then the third, I believe you call it the structure or the program. Well, I'm fascinated by this idea of developing a new story for yourself, a way that you can literally rebuild who you are. And the deeper I get into this physical transformation, I realize that is the most important part of this thing. And I'm really sort of dealing with it. It's really weird, but I'm getting to the other side of it and getting a lot of pleasure. So let's just talk about it for a second, and we'll get into the history. But I've watched so much of your content in preparation for the show. You were the fat kid. I was the fat kid. I was Fat Matt. You wore the t-shirt in the pool. I wore the t-shirt in the pool. We hid food. We snuck food. We were embarrassed of ourselves and our eating habits. Our self-confidence was deeply affected. And then you changed in your early 20s, and I'm trying to change now at 49. Do we really need to change, or can we just deal with it? Why do we have to go through the aggravation of transformation?
Well, that's where the growth comes from. You know, there's a growth that comes through the pain that happens by going through this transformation. And to clarify, the story is, in my opinion, the most important aspect of this, because if we don't know where we're going, how are we ever going to get there, right? And so you're 100% correct. And one of the first things I do with my clients is I have them, their homework for week 1 is I want them to go on this vision quest. I want them to imagine their life however they want it. Dream big. Like, don't limit yourself based on your current abilities or your current body or your current income or your current relationships. Dream big. In 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, what do you want your life to look like? And we're not just talking about your physique, but what do you want your life to look like? And I want you to envision that at your end goal.
But you were over 300 pounds. I haven't, in all the research I did, I didn't hear the actual peak number. So why don't you tell us how big you were?
Big as hell. To be honest,
NFL lineman big?
Yeah, well over 300 pounds. I didn't weigh myself back then.
Nobody
And so
weighs over 300. It's like what's there to gain
what's the
from
point?
stepping?
What's the point? You know, I shopped in the big and tall section. I wore, double or triple XL just to hide.
Yeah.
And I didn't weigh. And so when I hit my kind of rock bottom, big turning it around point, I just simply forced myself into action. And it wasn't until I was already on my journey, probably,
Yeah.
weeks to a month in,
Yeah.
I'd already seen results. Then I weighed myself and I was like, oh, 300. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So realistically, probably 330, 340, somewhere in there.
So mine was 331. That was my peak. And you ended up losing over 100 pounds.
130 documented pounds.
That's incredible. But that was, so you got down below 200?
170 pounds at 5'10".
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about it, because my goal, and some of our listeners and our audience are aware of this because I briefly talked about it, but I'm documenting the whole thing. My goal is 50 pounds by my 50th birthday, which is February 28th. So I will go from 315, which is the day that I started, down to 265. Now, that might be easy for some people to understand, but some days when I look in the mirror, I think I look like Arnold Schwarzenegger when I look in the mirror now. And a lot of people, like my buddy Rick Sapio, my partner in business finish school, was like, I'd like to have that mirror, dude. Where's, I mean, are you kidding me? He says. I'm like, no, I'm serious, man. I don't see it anymore. I feel good. He's like, dude, you're freaking huge.
You know what? It's this body dysmorphia thing is funny. And I've experienced both sides of the equation, being 170 pounds, but still looking in the mirror and seeing a 300-pound body.
Yeah.
But at the same time, then years later, I got into bodybuilding and I gained a lot of muscle and looking at myself in the mirror and again thinking I'm Arnold, right? Or I'm bigger than Arnold, and then seeing myself in a photo or a video and I'm like, oh, really? That's the reality.
Or you see Arnold at his peak, right? And you're like, oh my God, he was outrageous.
Okay, no, I'm not.
So here's the thing that I think is so important, because I pulled out all the stops, right? So I went to the nutritionist. I had the chef. They bring me my food on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays right to my front doorstep. And then I had the trainer. But I reached out to a friend of mine I reached out to a number of my buddies who are all in great shape. My requirement of finding a mentor or a coach is they must have achieved what I'm looking to achieve. So I go to my guys that are in the best shape. I went to my buddy Jamie Wade and I said, I'm looking for a new trainer. Who would you recommend? He replies and says, I have to ask you a question. Are you looking to lose weight or are you looking to transform? And I said, I'm looking to transform. He said, there's only one guy. And he gives me the name of this guy. And he says, this guy's not going to pay you much mind for the first month or so because he doesn't know whether you're going to stick it out. He doesn't know whether you really want to transform. Mm-hmm. And doggone it, wouldn't you know, at the third workout, I get there at 6 a.m. Right as I walk through the door, the guy sends me a text. He must have had the girl at the front desk say, hey, look out for Manero. And when he comes in, text me. And he texts me and he says, I want you to get on the elliptical machine and don't get off till I get there. Now, that's the kind of shit that motivates me, man. You know what I mean? Because I'm not going to have him come on and see me on there for 5 minutes. I didn't even get off for water, dude. I just stayed on it, right? 2 weeks in, he started to pay me some mind. And I started to say, okay, now we can be a team. Now, I'm not proving anymore that I'm worthy of this guy's attention. Now I can trust him and he can trust me that I'm committed. And now we can really do this thing. And most of the stuff we talk about during our workouts is this new character, this storyline. When I say character, I'm not talking moral, as you know. I just want the audience for clarity. I'm not talking about moralistically your character. I'm talking about this image, this visualization. And dude, I have always been pretty happy with my stature in life, but I was still fat. Still am fat. But I didn't want to be fat anymore.
You know, one of the things that I've experienced, and I've had clients all over the world experience, is through a transformation, it's not just their body. In fact, most of them will tell you, myself included, that it's the transformation that happened to our mind, to our, to ourself, to our outlook of our potential and our power. our abilities that is absolutely unbelievable. And the stuff that we achieve after having a physical transformation is stuff that we never could have imagined doing when we were overweight. Now, I look at you and your success in business, and in all honesty, tremendous respect for you and what you've done. And I go, just wait, because the best is yet to come. When you transform, your business is going to explode. And that has nothing to do with the fact that your own self-image and confidence in your abilities from having lost 100 some odd pounds. I mean, you need to lose over 100 pounds. So for you to, when you do that, you are going to be filled with so much confidence and I guess confidence is the right word, but your ability, your self-worth and your value of self is going to be so high that your business will explode. You will be motivating people underneath you in a way that you never could have before, and things will take off. I guarantee it. Mark my word.
Well, I appreciate your support in that, and you saying that. I think what I'm hoping for is that I have the grit to stick it out, because we're still in the early phases of this, dude. The plateau is going to come, all that stuff, right? But I hope that I can transform to be a kinder person, because I've done that in the business from a management style over the last couple of years. We called it the torch. Everybody knows that. But I used to manage and lead with an iron fist, and I never ever want to go back to that. And I think that humility might go to a whole new level as I do this physical transformation. But what do you see in humility? Because couldn't it go the other way, where the guy gets such in great shape and now he's like, well, I'm going to sleep around now because women want me, and people are going to look at me when I walk in the door as the stud and not the fat guy?
You know what's funny is I think that as much as there is a potential for that, the people that I've personally worked with and all of my network of people that I know that have lost tremendous amounts of weight, we tend to be the humble, the caring, the empathetic, right? And it leads to this very strong but empathetic leadership. You are no longer the iron fist. You're in the trenches with them. You are fighting with them. You are a very, very powerful, confident leader, but not one out of fear, one out of character and morals and passion in what you're doing. That's what I've seen more often than the dude that all of a sudden now is like puffing his chest out and trying to, hook up with chicks. Like, the possibility's there.
That's the guy that was always good with chicks, probably, right?
Yeah. But more often than not, what I've seen is this gentle passion, empathy that comes through in this transformation. And I can say that about myself too. You had a guest on not long ago that was a fitness professional, and he's a very military-esque leader. He's straight to the point, very in your face. He even said to you, "You're fat as F."
Yeah, obese, he said.
And just, he said, listen, I'm not going to baby you. I'm not going to whatever. I'm not. And I'm listening to this and just shaking my head. And I looked up the guy, and he's never had a weight problem in his life. I mean, his body type isn't even the kind that could get fat. And so he doesn't understand this complete different life that many of us share. And guaranteed, you look in his life and he's got his issues too. He's got, right? We all do. But for people that, have over 100 pounds to lose, we obviously have a food relationship issue. We've turned to food in times of stress, in times of joy, in times of sadness, in times of loneliness. And that also needs to be the core of what we work on. You can have a trainer train you in the gym. You can have a chef make your food. But you know what? When it's 11 o'clock at night, you got in a fight with your wife, she stormed out, and you are pissed off, who's going to be there to stop you from raiding the pantry? Who's going to be there? But
that's in your terminology and in your teaching and your coaching programs, willpower runs out. I've heard you say that. So
100%.
What is it that holds us to the structure and the program in that moment if it isn't willpower? What is it?
Well, there's two things. One, and that's where the vision process comes in. We have to know why we're doing this and why it's important, so that even in the rough times, we are working towards something that is almost in a way bigger than ourselves. We're going after something very, very important that we have emotional backing to, so that even when we're pissed off, we're still like, oh, but I'm on a bigger mission. That's part one. Part two is, realistically, in times of heightened emotion, we do have to have some way to cope with that. We have to have something. And so we need to put alternative distraction or coping methods in place so that when we are in this emotional state where we normally would have gone and called up Domino's to deliver 3 pizzas to the house, now we're doing something else that's not self-destructive. And so I work very early on with my clients to have these game plans in place for when that happens. Now, is it 100% effective 100% of the time? No, but that's why they call it a journey. And so it gets better and better and better. And pretty soon, when I took a client that was binging most of the nights of the week, and by 1 month in, they're down to 2 nights a week, and by 6 months in, there's no binging. They've lost a tremendous amount of weight, and they're a completely different person.
So I'd like your commentary on this, Jeremy, because in business, I'm a very high ethic, high moral guy, right? I don't screw employees, I don't screw vendors, I don't screw customers, and I never have, probably to a detriment of my own. But boy, when it comes to me, man, I screw myself over all the time.
Yeah,
and when I started writing in the journal, it started on day 1, I went to McDonald's the very first day. And in the journal, I wrote cheeseburger, but I left off the fries in the journal, but I ate the fries.
Yeah.
And that disappointed me so much that in huge letters, and if I had the journal with me, I'd show it to you, but in huge letters, I wrote, I refuse to lie to myself. And from that moment on, every morsel of food that I've taken in has gone in that journal. And that has helped me stop, taking an Oreo, because I committed to writing it down in the journal. But that level of depth of honesty is one of the things that I've really started to enjoy about this process. It's filtering in other areas.
100%. And in my teachings, you've touched on 2 points. One, you decided to take total ownership over your life, total ownership over your decisions. That's what you did. That first day, you lied to yourself, right? And then you said, I'm not going to do that anymore. I am going to take total ownership over what I choose to put in my mouth, even if that means, damn it, that hurts to log 2,000 calories in Oreos. Yeah. I'm going to do it. I'm going to own up to it. The second thing that you're talking about here, at least in my coaching philosophy and what I push out there, is core values. Now, you started off by saying you have amazing ethics in work and business and how you treat employees and customers and all that stuff, which I have no doubt. We all, usually most of us, have great core values and morals when it comes to how we represent ourselves to the outside world, right? You don't go down the street beating people. You don't rip people off, neither do I. We're good people in society. We contribute, we love, we share, but most people never take the time to determine what their core values are for their self, how they want to treat themselves, how they want to look at themselves, how they want to talk to themselves when they look in the mirror. Most of us are our own worst enemy. We look in the mirror and we say things that we wouldn't say to anyone in the outside world.
Yeah.
And so it's taking the time to create the core values. What's important to you in what you put in your body or how you move your body, or what sort of language you use when you talk to yourself?
Dude, I'm a freakazoid for core values and mission statement. I mean, it's what we're all about here, and especially in our seminar business at Business Finishing School. And even so, in my personal life, my number one core value was to be a better father to my 3 boys than my dad was to me. It drives a lot of my behavior. But guess what? One of those habits and rituals towards that was dinner night with my boys, go to the movies, bury the carton of popcorn and sodas and candies and all that sort of stuff, almost overindulging in food as an activity.
Yeah.
And that scratch in the record has to go away, because that habit, that storyline has to change. And that's a little bit weird. My boy's like, hey, Dad, let's go to dinner. And I'm like, I don't know, guys. Please let me just eat my food, man. Can we just eat right here, please? I just need my food. So how are people doing with that when they may be structured in their core values, but it's not in activity or in diet?
Yeah, well, you just have to replace what you're doing. And what you're talking about, and it's a great example, is you want to spend quality time with your boys or with your children, but you've chosen to make it food-centered up until now. And now it's like, oh, we can't make it food-centered, so what do? Well, it's you got to come up with something else. Go bowling, go mini golfing,
go shoot guns. That's what we started to do. We go shoot guns.
Get into drone flying. I don't know. Do something, right? Make it an activity that you still spend quality time with your children. Raise them right with morals and love and guidance. You just don't have to shove food down your throat doing it. It's not rocket science, but it's different from what we're used to, and so it takes us going, I'm no longer going to accept that this is the way it has to be done. I'm going to be open to doing it a different way while still accomplishing what you really meant to accomplish, which was creating a great relationship with your children.
Yes, totally. But yet, guess what? Food dominated that. And when I'm removing that, I'm actually getting that relationship that I was searching for in the first place through the core value. Yeah. I do want to touch on, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, which is our audience, and business owners are completely out of whack when it comes to diet and weight and activity and all that sort of stuff. And I'd like to just touch for a minute on something that I'm becoming a tremendous believer of, which is that sugar, particularly processed sugar, and even processed carbohydrates, are far more detrimental to us than any of us really believe. And I'd like to get your commentary on that. Do you really believe in this argument that, that sugar is as addictive as a drug, and that our bodies are literally so out of whack because of how much sugar we ingest?
100%. Yes. Yeah. And I see it every single day with talking with people who write me online or new clients that come aboard. It is so rampant, and we don't even realize it. This generation, the previous generation, we were raised on processed foods. That's just how it is. I mean, the rise of McDonald's and 7-Elevens and fast food and comfort food and convenient food made it so that a large majority of what people are picking up is out of convenience, especially entrepreneurs, because we have ourselves convinced that we don't have the time to eat healthy, that we've got to grab the quick thing. And what happens is we are ruining our body. And more importantly, in my opinion, we are killing our ability to function mentally at the level of which we could. And yes, it is a huge, huge thing. And if I could say for any of the listeners right now, you want to increase productivity, change your food. Make it your mission this next week. Let's not focus on the rest of your life. Just this next week, make it your mission to not have a single processed item. You are eating real whole foods. If it didn't have a root or a mommy at one point, it doesn't go in your body this next week. And you come and hit me up at Jeremy Reid Fitness, and you tell me how you're feeling a week from now.
Dude, we are brainwashed. I mean, in the town that I live in, a lot of the moms don't work, and so they're always, picking up their kids and doing the whole, and that Chick-fil-A drive-through is just packed, and the moms think they're doing a great job for their kids. I wouldn't take it to McDonald's. We'll go to Chick-fil-A and get chicken.
It's absolutely incredible how branding and marketing has us brainwashed in the food industry completely. We are now eating a way that our bodies are not meant to eat. Yeah. And yes, sugar, direct sugar, high fructose corn syrup, table sugar, all that stuff. But you hit the nail on the head. It's bigger than that. It's processed carbohydrates. Because what happens is when you take a thing that used to be a whole food item, like a grain of oatmeal that used to be a whole grain, and now you pulverize it into a flour. Well, guess what? That pulverizing is 3/4 of the digestion process in your body. You've now removed our body's need to digest it. So all the same effects that table sugar happen now happens with that healthy oatmeal, oat flour cookie or gluten-free this. If it's processed, it's responding in our body completely different than nature or God meant for it to do. And the repercussions are diabetes on the rise, health disease on the rise, mental health on the rise. It's crazy.
So let's go a little bit further on that, because I think people really need to understand this. And dude, I consider myself a pretty smart guy, and I think most people do too. I didn't know squat about this, but basically what you're saying is when you've removed any sort of nutrient from it, it immediately converts into the body as glycogen, which then immediately spikes insulin to combat the glycogen. And now we have this incredible inflammation. And maybe, you're the expert at Jeremy Reid Fitness. So did I describe that properly?
Well, it's technically glucose, not glycogen.
Okay, glucose, gotcha.
Glycogen is what it essentially gets transformed into when it gets stored into the muscle in the liver. But yes, our body digests it incredibly quickly, much quicker than it should, which has this incredible spike in blood glucose levels, higher than our bodies should get, because let's face it, we're eating something that our nature didn't make, we made. And so the effects on our body are artificial. And so we're taking all these levels at much higher than our bodies are capable of doing. With high blood sugar levels, high blood glucose levels, we have very, like, memory problems, focus problems. Long-term effects can happen by high blood sugar. The result of that is our pancreas then is blasting insulin at a rate that it's not meant to put out. And over time, if you're getting bigger, like if you're gaining fat through this process as well, you're becoming more and more insulin resistant. So your pancreas is working 2 times, 3 times, 10 times, 20 times as hard as it should. And because of the resistance, your blood sugar levels are staying elevated for 2 times, 5 times, 10 times longer than they should, which increases fat storage. It increases all the negative effects that it's having on our body, on our brain, on our everything. And it's just a snowball effect. And so what we've taken is something that, if you ate it every once in a while as a treat, no big deal. But when it's become a staple in your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, your snacks, your after dinner desserts, your coffees, your body is having to fight just to be in what would be a semi-normal state. And then you question, why am I gaining weight so fast? Why am I depressed? Why am I having such a hard time concentrating at work? Why am I so irritable? Like, why am I lethargic? Why am I tired even after I got 8 hours of sleep? I mean, the answer is in how you're treating yourself. You can tell I'm passionate about this. I'm sorry.
Dude, I got it though. But I mean, look, I always relate it back to business in a lot of ways. It's really the same thing. I mean, I think they're incredibly related. You know,
100%.
What you do in business is very similar to what you should be doing in your body transformation, right? I mean, it's blocking and tackling. It's doing the right stuff day in and day out. It's learning. It's training. It's taking action. I mean, so much of it is consistency. So much of it is so connected.
Yeah.
But you know, I just look around now, and I see people in so much pain, and I'm not talking emotional pain, I'm literally talking physical pain. They get up and they go, oh, right? Or they walk with hunched over, and they just look in pain all the time. And that inflammation for me, because I was that guy, has totally gone away from me. And now I'm on a high fat, low carbohydrate, ketogenic primarily, type of eating program right now, and that inflammation has gone to 0 for me. It's unbelievable, because I was a guy that was like, is this the way it's going to be forever now? Like, oh, I guess I'm getting close to 50. This is it. Dude, I jump around now.
Yeah. It's absolutely amazing. And I have literally every single one of my clients experiences the same thing. And because although I have them eating carbohydrates, it's a very anti-inflammatory style diet. And so for most of them, if they're ready, I'll put them on it. If not, then we kind of small steps, baby steps to get there. But once they get there, the same thing happens. The knee pain that's bothered them since college, and that happened to correlate with when they hit 300 pounds or whatever. And the knee pain they've had for 10 years, 20 years, the lower back pain, the tightness in their chest. It's not because they lost 100 pounds already. It's because their body is so not inflamed anymore that they feel like 20 years younger.
Yes, it's so true. If you're listening and you're experiencing some of that just overall lethargicness, that pain, absolutely do what Jeremy's talking about and look at your diet for a week and see it. I want to just move into this element of your teachings and your coachings, Jeremy, because I think it's so spot on. We have to understand that this transformation is not an overnight thing, that it really doesn't have a shot at happening if we have these too grandiose expectations. And one thing my trainer said to me recently was, he said, you know, I got to give you some bad news. And I said, what's that? He says, well, we're going to lose the 50 pounds. There's no doubt about that. He says, but when you lose that 50 pounds, you're not going to look as good as you think you're going to look.
Right.
He's like, the person you think you're going to look like, that's years.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just want, I'm gonna break it to you right now, buddy, because I don't want you to be heartbroken at 265 that you're not shredded, you know, and you're not 22 inches on the biceps and all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's so correct. And how I tackle this in my kind of teachings or philosophy is a couple ways. First of all, so many of us, especially when it comes to our health or weight loss attempts, we have this black-white, pass-fail, on-off type mentality where if you're not 100% perfect, then you might as well be buried under a mile of pizza and eating your way to the top. Like we have to get this out of our head that we are perfect, because none of us are perfect. So just because we are going to fail does not make us failures, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And so understanding that, you're going to give in to temptation once in a while, but you can't just throw in the towel, fall off the wagon. You got to get right back on and take 2 steps forward. That's step number 1. The second thing is truly understanding that this whole eating right and exercising thing, this isn't punishment because we were over 300 pounds. This is simply how we should be living as humans. Like, no matter what your waist size is, this is how we should be living. And you know what? The positive repercussions for living that way is weight loss, is feeling better, is better health. Like, this isn't punishment.
Dude, we have to come to grips with the fact that, you know, we've filled our cheesecake quotient for a lifetime at 300 pounds, man. I mean, really, we've gorged and just taken it to an extreme, man. You just got to come to grips with it.
Yeah, and that's that total ownership that I talk about. It is truly, it's taken complete, total ownership over where you're at, how you got there, right? We can all, and I hear every story in the book.
I'm sure.
I was molested or abused as a child.
Yep.
I was raped in college. I went through a bad divorce. I lost my dream job. I've heard it all.
My wife left me.
Right. And that's the reason why I gained so much weight and you gained so much weight because you didn't deal with the trauma, the abuse. We've all experienced trauma and abuse. Every single one of us, we've got something that we could complain about, right? But it's until we take ownership over our actions and behaviors that we can go, okay, listen, yeah, I got a hand dealt to me that maybe, you know, it's hard, it's bad. I went through some tough times, but I'm going to deal with that. I'm going to let myself feel that. And I'm not going to just bury myself in food to try to cover it up or make myself feel better. I'm going to actually work on myself. I'm going to take ownership over my behaviors, over my thoughts, over my patterns. That's what this is about.
I'm gonna tap my potential, and my potential requires me to be a different physical specimen. And I think that's I'm using me as me, but I'm referencing anyone else in this process as well. That I do believe there is the outside is a reflection to the health of your inside.
100%. And something commonly that I'll say that it can be motivating for some and confusing to others, but if they're ready, I'll go, listen, you know, in your vision process, you envisioned yourself and you were making 6 figures and you were frolicking on the beach with your, you know, this woman and you dressed a certain way, right? You weren't slobby, you did your hair, you were well kept, you went in suits to work. I said, I want you to wake up tomorrow living that guy's life. I know you're not there yet. You haven't lost the weight yet, but I want you to steal his mindset, steal his habits, steal his behaviors, and you put that into play tomorrow.
Yeah.
If in a year or 2 years from now, you want to be respected, you want to be well-dressed, then you go out and you buy the cheap suit because that's all you can afford right now, but you get that cheap suit and that's what you're wearing tomorrow to work. If you no longer want to be the iron fist asshole, then you go in tomorrow and you be the empathetic, nice guy. If you want to be the leader, be a leader, right? Like, start living that life that guy, the guy you want to be, is living a year from now, 2 years from now.
Yeah, so, you know, what we're talking about here is really, you know, the diet starts on Monday BS, you know. I mean, the diet, that person usually doesn't hold the diet, you know.
Right.
And people think that decisions are so difficult, and it's really not. Decisions happen in an instant. And you know, I think it's important to hear your positioning on people's excuses because you've heard them all. And you remember the old Sir Mix-a-Lot song, I like big butts and I cannot lie? Well, Billy and I are working on a video here where we're doing our version of it. And it says, I don't like big butts and I cannot lie. Your excuses no longer fly. And then we're going to go into a whole thing on it and turn it into a video. So how do we deal with these excuses, man? Because when and what is the proper way to say to somebody, enough is enough. I'm the guy you can't bullshit.
Yeah. First of all, I tell them you got to slow down. You got to slow down because a lot of your life is driven off of emotion and habit. You're behaving certain ways without even thinking about it. And so, and again, I try to not do anything that's super long term. Like I don't want them to think like, oh my God, I got to do this for the next month or 2 or 3, which they will. But it's easier for us to say, listen, for this week, until we talk again, I want you to focus on this. This is your homework for the week. And this is it. It's consciousness. I want you to be present with yourself and your thoughts. Because a lot of times we buy into our bullshit because that's the story we've fed ourselves. We just live it. We believe it. Oh, I am the abused. I am the hurt. I'm the shy one. I'm the whatever.
Or I'm the fat guy, life of the party.
And you will bring yourself back there until you change that story. You will what do they call it? Self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If that's your story in your head, even if you lose weight, you're going to gain it back because that's how you view yourself and you will self-sabotage without even realizing. But the point is getting conscious. What am I feeling? What am I doing? Especially when food's around, right? If I walked you into a room and there was a Bengal tiger chained up in the corner staring at you, you'd be pretty present and aware, wouldn't you? You'd be very aware there's a tiger in the corner of the room. We have to understand that when we have used food as a drug, the food in the room needs to be that Bengal tiger. And I'm not saying be afraid of it because food's not the issue, but we have to be present. We have to be aware of what we're doing. We have to be aware of the decisions we're making. Have the conversations in your head. Why am I doing this? What's the purpose? Does this align with the vision that I have for my life? If you start to just take the 10 seconds, 5 seconds that it takes to ask yourself these legitimate questions, a lot of times it's easy to then pass on the cake at work or the donuts that's offered to you. It's okay to say, okay, I'll skip the fries tonight or whatever, because we're conscious. If we're not thinking about it, we will always do things the way we've done it.
Small incremental examples of discipline have tremendous impact on our consciousness and our ability to be present. It's unbelievable to me how present I can get if I push. I went to a dinner last night and right in front of me, as soon as I sat down, was the sourdough roll with the butter. Now, but I would have buried 10 of them and I would have said, are you gonna eat that roll? And I would have doused it. And I in a power move, subconscious power move, I pushed it away and then I asked the waiter, would you please remove that? And I did it as polite and nice as I could because there's an element of me that would have been like, get that shit away from me, because I'm afraid of it. But it was a power move for me to go all the way and say, I'm in control of you, I'm in control of you, I'm in control of you. And then would you be kind enough and just remove that from the situation so I don't have to look at it and be tested anymore?
Right. Amazing how powerful that can be, huh?
It's unbelievable what a small movement like that. And I was pretty much good for the rest of it, where I was going to push the rest of the food, the cream sauce and all that other stuff away. I was pretty well done. I had my power move. My discipline was reinforced.
Yeah. People look at some of this stuff or sometimes don't even think about it. Like this is foreign language for a lot of people. They have to have a coach tell them this kind of stuff. but amazing how this can completely, I want to say transform, but help our own transformation. Give us that sense of control and power in our life, even before we've gotten to the abs and the chiseled body. When we're still in our journey, we can feel completely in control by taking ownership in those times and making power moves, putting our foot down and going, this isn't serving me. Can you please get it out of my sight? Hey, I'm not gonna be a dick about it. I'm not gonna throw it across the room, but I need this away right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was with one of my buddies who's always struggling with his weight, and I'm like, you're gonna want my roll, aren't you, pal? Should I really let him take it? And I'm busting his balls too. But I think all of it, those elements of discipline are how to bring this full circle and how it relates to money and work and all that sort of stuff. Is that level of discipline? It doesn't just stop there. It exudes, it encompasses everything, maybe some faster than others, but eventually that discipline and the vision is what you become over the period of time. And it almost squeezes out that other element. I was going to call it weakness. I don't want to call it weakness, but that other version just doesn't have as much air to breathe anymore.
100%. Yeah. And there's so much, like just the everything we listed, right? There's so much parallel between taking care of ourselves and taking care and growing a business. So many parallels. And the lessons that you've learned in your years or decades of business ownership and building a business, you are using currently today in your transformation. You know, there was a time where business was scary and you didn't know what you were doing and everything was new, and you had to step in faith that the end result was going to be worth it. And, you know, I'm not going to go back and get that corporate job. I'm going to stay and I'm going to work this thing and I'm going to build it. And that's the same thing. I mean, we want to go back to comfort. Even if comfort is 350 pounds, so many of us want to go back there because it's safe. And even though it's going to kill us, it's not as scary as stepping into the unknown and the fear of working hard and pain. And so it's trusting the process and believing in yourself and staying consistent.
I think it's important for people to realize, and I'd like to just finish on your specific story, but I think it's important for people to realize that it may not work the first time you make the decision. Like, for example, that podcast episode you were referencing, I had so many starts and stops before that. Dude, that's not my first trainer. I used to have a guy come to my house every day, 4 days a week, and I'd work out. But I would lie to myself and eat like a pig, and then I'd lie to him. And eventually it changed our relationship because he was a smart guy. He's like, dude, you're working out hard. How can you not be losing weight? You're eating like a pig and you're telling me you're not. Come on, man. Who's bullshitting who? Right?
Yeah.
And then even after that interview, that was an igniting for me to get serious about it again. But that was a start and stop. And so there's a fear of mine that if I don't transform and really understand what we're talking about in transformation, that I won't pull this one off. There has to be a new vision of what I can look like and what I can feel like to pull this off for me. Would you agree with that?
100%. Yes. Yes. You have to create that vision in your head. You have to want it. You got to put emotion behind it.
So how did you do it, man? I mean, how did you draw the line in the sand that said, Jeremy Reid is not going to be this storyline anymore?
And just to kind of get people up to speed, I was 23 years old, 24 years old. I was a father of two. I was working multiple jobs, and food, if it wasn't working, food was everything. You know, I was
thought about it all the time.
Right. I was smoking 2 packs a day.
No kidding.
I was eating literally anything I wanted, and, you know, drinking over a 12-pack of Mountain Dew a day. I was drinking myself to sleep every night.
Drinking as an alcohol or wow.
Yeah. And woke up one day and looked at myself and my life and my habits and how I felt. I should not feel that bad at 23 years old, right? That's just ridiculous. And I woke up and realized I, as a human, deserved better than how I was living. Like, and when you truly believe that, not when you're just kind of like, I should fix this or I should turn it around. No, I was like, I deserve better than this. Like, I've been abusing myself. I need to be better. Like, I must. When you get to that level, your standards of living raise. And when your standards raise, you won't live below your standards. You won't. And so I'm in no way saying it was easy, because it's not. But there was such a deep desire that the things that now I preach and teach and coach about, I was so passionate about doing this. I was, raised my standards. And I was like, oh, I can live however I want. So how do I want to live? What do I want to look like? And I immediately, at 300 pounds, started looking at bodybuilders and looking at muscular guys. I'm like, I would love to look like that, And so for the first year, I got on an elliptical. That's it.
That was your action choice.
Yeah. I joined a gym the next day. I'd never worked out. I signed up, I walked in, and I saw a woman on the elliptical right in front of me, and I saw the movement, right? And I was like, I understand that movement. Like, no coaching needed.
I don't need form. I'm good.
Yeah. I'm going to look like a walrus doing it, but I'm going to do it. And so I got on an elliptical, and I probably only, I don't remember, but I probably only made it like 7 or 8 minutes, and I'm hacking, and I can remember I got off the elliptical after like 7 minutes. I went outside and lit up a cigarette before I even got to my car. But what happened was I got into my car and I said to myself, you just did it. Like what you just accomplished, if you just invest into this, you're going to get there. Like this is how you're going to do it. And so the first thing was I cut out the regular soda. I went to diet. Like I still was drinking a ton of soda, but I went to diet.
Really small incremental steps. I mean, these
Oh, yeah.
were small changes. It wasn't a radical, I'll never touch it again.
Oh, heck no. No, I was still smoking for like a month into my journey.
Yeah.
I highly cut down the alcohol consumption. I switched to diet soda. We were still eating. Like my wife is beautiful. She's never had a weight problem. My kids luckily never had a weight problem, but we were, at that point we were penny pinching. We were eating Hamburger Helper and, all this stuff. And so I was still eating like the cheesy burger burritos that we'd make, and instead of eating like 3 of them, I'd eat 1. And just these little changes, and then the weight started falling off because, well, I was eating less, I was exercising, and the 7 minutes turned into 10, which turned into 15, which turned into 30. And before you know it, a year was gone and I was down 100 pounds.
So it took you a year to lose it?
Actually, a little less. It took me about 9.5 months to lose 100 pounds.
Amazing. So you were very entrenched with this journey. You at some point you were no longer limping in. You were all in.
Oh, I was all in. Yeah.
And when did you start to incorporate weights to rebuild the muscle size?
After about a year.
Really? It was pretty much all cardio. The weight loss was connected to cardio.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100% cardio and nutrition. And I lost 100 pounds. And in the meantime, I was going to bodybuilding forums online and I was buying the magazines. And finally I was like, you know what? My body looks different. Like it does. I'm wearing different clothes. And I said, next step, I'm going to go into that other side of the gym, the scary side of the gym. And man, I'll tell you what, I lifted my first weight and never looked back.
You just loved it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. Well, then you found your purpose, right?
I did.
The rest was just a holding place, man.
That's right. Yeah. It's been 13 years since I made that first step. And I have never looked back. I mean, even before I got into the fitness industry, I got my personal training certificate just because I wanted it, just because I could, And then I bought a gym and I trained people and sold that gym and then went doing online training. And so now for the last 5 years, I've been all online. I will train in person, but it costs a tremendous amount of money.
Where are you based out of again? SoCal, right?
Yeah, I'm just north of LA. Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
And so, in fact, all the most of the in-person training I've done has been out of the country. Very high ticket clients that are, they'll ship me somewhere and we'll work together.
Wow, cool.
And so, but a lot of what I do is on mindset. I mean, yes, I do their nutrition. Yes, I do their fitness. But the coaching time that we spend is on most of what we've been talking here today. We didn't talk about form and rep ranges. Yeah. We didn't talk about calories and macros. Yeah. We talked a lot about mindset. And when you've got a massive amount of weight to lose or you want to make any sort of transformation in your life, it comes down to this, your mind.
Yeah, it does. And I know what you're saying is true, that that everything around gets better. Mm. And I just wonder, there's the thing that creeps in my mind is, why did I wait so damn long,
You can't do that to yourself. Don't do that to yourself.
Why didn't I have it figured out earlier, man? Maybe I could have had abs in my 30s. I don't know if I can get them at 50, but people can, right, dude? People can.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you can get them. You can get them. I mean, I've taken multiple clients from morbidly obese to competing in bodybuilding shows, and in even 40s, 50s. Yeah. It's totally possible. You can take it however far you want.
Well, dude, it's been a pleasure to meet with you and talk to you, and I appreciate you going there with me. I know I talked a lot about myself today, but I appreciate you listening and helping and reinforcing me and giving everybody good advice. It's Jeremy Reid Fitness. Follow him at Jeremy Reid Fitness on Instagram, too. He's got a great page. I love those before and afters. I mean, it's one thing to hear someone say I was 300 pounds, but you post the pictures, man.
Yeah.
You were a big boy.
I was a big boy, and now I'm a big boy in a different way. And
oh, dude, you're shredded now. It's awesome.
It makes it much more. It makes it much more impactful to see those before and afters when it's so drastically different.
Yeah, it's killer. Listen, I appreciate it, Jeremy. It was a pleasure to meet you. A pleasure to talk to you. I can't wait to visit with you in person, and I'll see you down the road.